guys, it's Stephen at the Flat Earth Continuum. So today was the first day that I was out doing street interviews, the kind of flat earth activism. I didn't post anything round about, I didn't put any flyers or anything up, I don't have those prepared yet. I'll sort that out, it's not, it's not the be all and end all, tomorrow will come. And I'll sort it out as and when. So I was out all day and I'll be honest, it's just striking 12 o'clock. I'm absolutely knackered, but mentally kind of really, really drained actually, man. Just been out there and kind of hacking away at this all day. I get some really good responses, varied responses. Cognitive dissonance was definitely apparent. Some people even got to the stage where they had to say that I prefer to believe in fantasy, essentially. So that's, because you're breaking the entire thing down and we're identifying fundamental personality types here, and that it doesn't matter what you show certain people, they've got their way of thinking, and no matter what, it'll be a waste of your time. That's another thing that I learned today, that my method and my approach definitely needs refinement. Today was my first day. I was excited and I was anxious and I was nervous, and all those things kind of definitely played a hand. Some of my natural tendencies to be quite confrontational, conversationally, that way that I tend to do that quite a lot, and it's teaching me something about myself, that I've always tried to refine the negative aspects of my own character. Seeing it and watching it back, you're analysing your own technique, how you engage with people, and it is quite revealing. You learn a lot about yourself, and I was probably too aggressive in my approach. So this first interview that's going to take place is at the beach park in Irvine. This chap's name is Graham. He was a lovely guy, and I could see and I could tell during the conversation that he was kind of, that cognitive dissonance and the stress of the moment was setting in, and that no matter what he said, I had my, I had everything prepared, so he had nowhere to go, and so essentially I was just kind of doing this to make sure that the conversation stayed Socratically correct and intellectually honest. Okay, so I'm Stephen, by the way.
Graham.
Pleasure to meet you. So this, what I'm really doing, like we've just basically discussed there, that we're trying to establish that people can think things, but through a process of Socratic conversation, which is a process of hypothesis elimination.
Yep.
That we can come to an agreement about what reality is, and we can make a determination about whether or not something's factual or false.
Okay.
So just a couple of really, really basic questions, just to kind of kick off. Sorry, I've got myself sort of in disorder here. So just a couple of questions just to kick off. So these first questions are really just to establish just a kind of an overview of your kind of basic fundamental beliefs.
Okay.
So wealth or happiness?
Happiness.
Wisdom or youth?
Wisdom.
Being or becoming?
Being.
Imagination or reality?
Oh, imagination.
Government or self-rule?
Oh, that's a hard one. Self-rule, I think.
I'd go with that. I'd go with that as well. Freedom of speech or censorship?
Oh, freedom of speech.
It's freedom of speech. Education or common sense?
Common sense.
A comforting answer or the truth?
The truth.
Just leading on from that, do you think that we're being told the whole truth about the world that we live in?
No.
No. And can I ask you if you trust the government?
No.
No. Can I just ask you why you
I
don't
don't trust any politician.
From my perspective, I absolutely agree with that.
Lie.
As soon as they open their mouth.
Yeah, basically everything comes out as a lie. Yep. It's all for self-preservation.
That's exactly it. It's the same answer that I get from virtually everybody. I've never had anybody say, "Oh, I trust the government."
No.
I wouldn't trust that person. That way.
No. That's
So leading on from that, can I just define natural science as being different from a formal science and a social science?
Yep.
That natural science would essentially mean that we have to test and verify. It has to be testable, reproducible, and verifiable.
Aye.
That would be the fundamental premise of natural science.
Yes.
And if you can't conform to those three salient points, then a hypothesis should have to be thrown out because you
Yes.
can't prove it.
Yeah.
So a formal science would be like a language, like mathematics, in that a mathematical axiom can be put forward and it can come through to a conclusion, but it doesn't require any real-world tangible observations to back it up.
Yeah.
So if I said to you, I've got a pink unicorn, would you believe me?
No.
No. If I showed you a photograph of my pink unicorn, would you believe me?
No.
No. So we've established there that a photograph is not enough evidence to establish whether or not something is correct or true.
Yeah.
So based on that order, we say, there's my bag, and it's there.
See what you got.
So based on that, so if I says to you, phrase the question right, how open are you to hearing things that might contradict things that you believed your whole life?
You can never shut anything out. You've always got to take it in as merits and see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I says to you that all form of agreement is the basis for truth, that I can think something, but if I can establish that thing, that you agree that thing is also true, then we have a basis for fact, a basis for truth.
Yeah.
And without that cooperative agreement, we don't have truth. We've got contradictions, probably reasons not to think those
Yes.
things. So if I said to you it's the natural physics of water to take the shape of a bottle, to take the shape of a container, to find an equilibrium with the environment and then to remain level, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yep. If I says to you, could you take this bottle and make water conform to the exterior surface, could you make that happen?
Squeeze it.
No, I mean, can you make, if I took the liquid that's inside the bottle, could you make it stick to the outside of the bottle?
No.
No. So, based on that idea, the world is allegedly, the surface of the world is covered by over 70% water. Based on the natural physics of water that we've just established, do you think that you live on a bottle?
Good question. Perception from what you've seen from and what you believe you've seen from photographs of the Earth, and yes, it must be.
No, however, we've just established that you couldn't take photographs as being proof. Would you agree with that?
But you also then have people who have supposedly been in outer space and have seen that the Earth is supposedly round.
Okay.
Or a shape that's not square.
Yep.
And not flat.
It's interesting, see, to start talking about these points, I'm just going to skip straight forward. So we'd already established, and I'd already asked if we could trust the governments, and we've established that we can't trust the government. Would you agree that NASA is a branch of the government?
Yes.
Can I just show you, are you aware of the 1986, what I'm trying to do here, just to make a point of clarification, is to establish not only that we not trust the government, but we can prove why we can't trust the government. And what I'm going to try to do now is show you evidence provided by NASA that shows that they've not told us the whole truth. You comfortable with that?
Yeah.
So in 1986, the Challenger space shuttle disaster took place. The shuttle took off. As it took off into the air, I think it was an altitude of something like 40,000 feet, and it exploded.
Yep.
We were told that the 7 astronauts on board died.
Yeah.
I mean, you can imagine they actually had a 21 gun salute for these people.
Yep.
They had a whole series of stuff. So can I just ask you to look at this image? So here are the astronauts. Okay, that's what they looked like when they allegedly died. This is photographs of them today, that they're still alive. You can find this information online.
Who's to say that's the truth?
So again, we've got this objective reality. Yep. What I'm saying is that NASA provides us pictures. So from that fallacious perspective that you could use photographs to prove something that was true, well, I'm going to do the same thing. If they say that it's okay, then I'm demonstrating something. So what I'm just doing is establishing that there's reasons to think that the government can't be trusted.
Who's to say that these are the same people?
So they've all been questioned. He claims to be his identical twin brother. He's been questioned. He also claims to be his identical twin brother. They've changed their names. Dick Scobie has kept his name. I mean, you can go and interview this guy. People have interviewed him. You know, that way that they've spoken to this guy, so they know. I can't remember this lady's name. She's a professor of law. She's also not changed her name. Judy.
That could be Tom Jones for all I know.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're looking at the basic forms there, but again, just trying to establish that there's some hoo-ha going on. There's a little bit of jiggery pokery going on. So here is a picture of the Challenger space shuttle exploding in the sky.
Yep.
This is a picture of the alleged wreckage under the ocean. Does this picture seem to be consistent with this?
No.
No. That's obviously a picture, that's a downed plane on 9/11.
Yep.
So you can see there's serious inconsistencies here. Serious inconsistencies with what we are shown from official sources. So again, I'm using their own sources and their own images to try and establish that there's some inconsistencies here that we should be questioning. Just to take this a little stage further, just to show that they say that the whole world's a stage. There are people who would have you believe that there was no planes hit the towers in 9/11. Right? I'd like to establish some points of fact about this. That people have taken this from, again, the presented official images that are presented to us. So I'm just going to show you this image here. So this is one of the alleged planes. This building is behind the tower. You notice that the wing is missing. This isn't the only incidence of this in 9/11. Here are images of the plane allegedly entering the building. And what we're suggesting here is that they've digitally inserted these images into, someone's actually filmed, and then they've digitally inserted. Do you know that the only people who captured, there was only, I think there was more than 11, but all of the 11 people who captured the 9/11, the actual impact moment, were all journalists working for established TV firms. Do you know that?
No.
What do you think about that, just in general, just about the information I've showed
Obviously,
you there?
the potential is that what you're doing, potential that they've been tipped off.
Yeah. So there's some interesting ideas there. You could follow through with certainly some interesting conclusions about that. So back to NASA, back to official images, and back to the shape of the world. So we're back to photographs. So these are pictures of the Earth from space, allegedly.
Okay.
Is there anything that you can notice about these images which seems to be inconsistent, which doesn't ring true?
I don't know my glasses with me. All the other images seem to be always of North America.
Yeah. What you'll notice here is that this is supposed to be South America.
Mm-hmm.
This is supposed to be a part of North America.
Well, it looks very
That's
much more
North
like
America.
Africa.
So if you look at the section there, again, this is the Gulf of Mexico, and there, and just off of there would be the Bermuda Triangle, and presumably underneath here would be the
rest of
yeah.
Latin America.
So you'll notice the difference in size.
Yeah.
That the continental landmass of America is massive. Would you agree that there's some inconsistencies and something wrong with these images?
Obviously, the Americans are digitally enhancing the size of their country to make it look
So
better.
that's an interesting idea. So known for a fact, because again I've done a great deal of research here, do you know that there's a difference in the definition between an image, a photograph, a composite, and a CGI digital composition? That they're completely different terms and they mean different things.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into the NASA site, you'll discover that everything that you're shown they're not photographs. If I take a real photograph of you right now, that's a photograph. It's completely undoctored and unmanipulated in any way. The natural light flows into the lenses and it's unmanipulated. So when you go into the NASA site, you discover that all of the pictures, because if they told you a lie, if they directly told you a lie, then they'd be culpable. You could sue them. So to avoid any legal entanglement, they clearly state that these are not photographs that you're looking at. There's composite images, there's CGI renderings, a whole bunch of stitched together imaging, so they're not actual pictures of a world. No one's ever actually went up there and took a real picture of the world as it actually is. And so we're presented with these images and told that this is what the world is. Based on everything that we've kind of talked about, do you think that the world is a sphere or flat?
It's a sphere.
Can I ask you why you believe that?
Because I've been in a plane and I've seen the curvature there.
You've seen the curvature of the Earth, that's quite interesting, I have to say. So here we are, we're looking out at the horizon. It's the same thing that you'll observe no matter where you go. So what we're staring at here is the apparent horizon. Can I just ask you what you think happens to a boat as it passes the horizon?
It continues over the, basically continues on the sea. It doesn't kind of fall off the edge. It just continues on until the perception of how far you can actually physically see. Then the curvature kind of goes that way. So therefore, obviously, it falls off your visual range.
So what if I said to you, with a P900 Nikon camera, I can bring in something which is completely allegedly went over the curvature of the Earth. I'm not sure how good a person's camera would have to be before it was able to see around a bend, but that would be a physical impossibility on a globe. That you can use your camera and you can bring in the Eels of Craig right there. I've done this from Ardrossan Harbour to Broadock Beach.
Mm-hmm.
So the overall curvature calculation states you should be able to observe.
Yes, I see you. Oh, hello.
Okay, so back to the curvature calculation. So the curvature calculation is right here. So the curvature calculation states.
Yep.
So it states that the assumption is that for the first mile, 8 inches of curvature should be observed, the angle increasing inversely to the square of the distance for every subsequent mile observed. So the following would be true. I can't actually state between here and Eels of Craig. I've not actually done this with the P900 yet, but I've done it between Ardrossan and Broadock Beach. So between Ardrossan and Broadock Beach is exactly 17.4 miles. Between that distance you should observe X amount of curvature based on these calculations. You can see here that it would fall somewhere in between this, and so Broadock Beach should be behind the curvature of the Earth by 266 feet. Yet I can bring it back into my field of perspective using a zoom camera. Can you explain that on a sphere?
No.
Does it ring true?
That.
Does it ring?
Yeah, probably, because there's nothing to say, because in real terms the camera is falsifying the distance, so therefore it's bringing everything closer, so therefore this calculation then technically goes out the window. Because
I get it. Well, to be honest, that would be, because to say that you could measure distance, you'd need several points. Because I'm using a photograph, I can use trigonometric calculation, and I can determine exactly how far it is based on where I'm told it is and what I'm looking at.
But
and
again,
so
the perception of the lens is to bring things closer. So therefore, you're actually negating probably some of the curvature.
What I would say is that if I take a picture of this hill and it extends far enough back, would you agree that you would still observe the curvature of the hill?
The way it is just now, aye.
That you would still
see that slope.
That you should definitely observe curvature. Because if the world's a ball, you should observe it. If I said this, if I put it a different way, if I stood you on a ball, literally a football, as you rise up away from the ball, the horizon should necessarily drop down as your field of perspective goes higher and higher in the sky, but you don't ever observe that. The idea that the world would be too big to observe that would be fallacious. It's a finite size, and we've got the calculation, so we know how much curvature and drop we should observe. And so we've got these natural observations. So we're back to physics of water. Then I'll go on and ask something else. I'll say, have you ever felt the world spin? Do you know how many people get that answer? Everybody says that. Everybody gives me the same answer. So, just based on what they tell us, so the world's allegedly wobbling, right? And then from the wobble, it's spinning around its axis at 1,000 miles per hour. Beyond that, it's moving around the solar system at 64,000 miles an hour. Beyond that, the solar system itself is moving towards allegedly another part of the galaxy. But the whole thing is moving in the galactic plane, 270,000 miles an hour. The galactic plane is moving within a supergalactic cluster, which is moving, I've got no idea what speed that is, and then that whole formation is supposed to be moving towards...
Speed perception would eventually blur at a certain point in time, at a certain speed, so therefore you can see that in photographs and whatever may be. You can see the fact that a car going at 250, 200, when they get up to these stupid speeds, it's only video that really picks it up.
So we're dealing with the Doppler effect, really. We're dealing with this phenomenon that the energy changes as it comes towards you and moves away. So if I says to you, can you prove that we're moving at that speed? Do you think you could prove it? So given that we can't prove this, we're going to have to throw it out. that way again from basic hypothesis elimination. If we're using 3 basic primary precepts of science, then we'd have to say we can't prove that. We've made an agreement between ourselves, we can't prove that, and so it no longer is applicable to the model of the world, because we can't prove it.
Where's this going?
It's literally, I've already asked the question, is it spherical or is it round? I've already established these ideas.
So I believe it's a sphere.
So you believe it's a sphere. So we're establishing really that it is a belief that you believe that you live in a sphere and that it's not proven.
I don't believe it's flat, because if it was flat, then you go so far and then you fall off the edge.
So can I just ask you why?
Well, you answer me the question then. People who circumnavigate the world.
Okay. Very easy.
How come they don't fall off?
Well,
because they must get to the edge.
I would suggest to you that you've suggested to me that the world has an edge, and I've not suggested that.
No, but where does it stop then?
If I said to you the universe is infinite, where does it stop?
Right, fair enough.
So we've got a point.
There will be a mass somewhere. We just don't. Well, no calculation to understand how big a mass that is.
So coming back to your first point about circumnavigation, I'll just have to flick through to actually get to the specific page. So this is what happens when I don't follow my own Socratic method. It's in here somewhere, sorry. So I'm not saying that this is the correct model for the world. However, you can travel in a circle around about a plane quite easily, and so it would appear like circumnavigation is the exact same thing.
But they don't travel in one plane. They travel.
An aeroplane doesn't travel in a plane. You sure?
No, when you circumnavigate the world in a boat, you don't tend to stick on one plane.
Do you mean plain sailing?
Plain sailing.
Oh, so you don't stick in a plane on plain sailing?
No, you don't. And just on a sailboat. So a boat that's out there sailing along, to go round about that landmass there, doesn't stay on the because it can't stay in the same plane all the time, because it's got to move to get out of the land.
Can I just ask you why they call it plain sailing if it's not travelling in the same plane? Can I just ask you, how do we measure the land, the height of the landmass? What do we measure it against?
Sea level.
The sea level. So, you see where I'm kind of going with this?
The sea level comes up and down. Sea level rises and falls.
I'm not sure that. Okay, so we'll go to centripetal forces. So we'll go to centrifugal forces, if you don't mind. So if we're dealing with centrifugal forces and centripetal forces, what we're dealing with is a spinning world. Could I maybe just ask you, if the world is spinning, why are things not thrown off?
Gravity, probably.
So, back to the process of hypothesis elimination. If I asked you to take any object and show me it gravitating towards another object by merit of its mass alone, could you prove that that was factually true?
Yeah, I could hold it above that rock and it would fall into the top of the rock. That's gravity.
So I would suggest to you that my hat is of greater molecular density than the air around it, and so it's attracted to.
Agreed.
So
gravity then.
Buoyancy would be the converse. Does gravity apply to a helium balloon?
Eventually, yeah.
Where?
When it hits the atmosphere.
Well, it's always in the atmosphere, if you know.
But when it hits the upper atmosphere, it then becomes, it will then burst, and therefore then the helium expands to an extent that it becomes too large, and therefore it bursts, and therefore the balloon is then defined by gravity and it falls back down.
But we know we're dealing with density there. We know that we're observing the
why
effects of density.
Why did the guy who did the jump,
Felix Baumgarten?
Why did he, when he jumped off, why did he fall to Earth?
He fell to Earth because his mass density was greater than that of the air in the atmosphere around him, and so he falls through that atmosphere until he comes to a solid surface. Again, because it would be difficult to prove gravity beyond just dropping something, if I says to you, how high do you have to go before you no longer fall back to the ground, what would you say?
I wouldn't know. Don't have a clue.
Does it not follow then there's some inconsistencies that if I can describe this process of gravity through density and buoyancy, and that buoyancy seems to counteract the effects of gravity, that there'd be some inconsistencies with the gravitational theory?
I'm not entirely sure.
So, if I go back to centripetal and centrifugal forces, if I could maybe just describe The only time that you observe a gravitational effect in any way is when something is in motion. And I'll just describe this motion because you understand it when you hear it. When you're in a car and you're going round and round about, the car's mass shifts into the line that it's travelling, and you will necessarily have to shift into that line to follow the weight of the car, its inertial movement. It wants to travel forward, and because it's still travelling forward, but it's still pulling at the side, it finds a centre of mass off-centred, and then it continues around its vector. Knowing that this is the case, they tell us that every point in the Earth is the centre. If that's true, can you demonstrate it?
No.
It's not consistent with your real world observations.
No.
That everything, if you imagine that all of that mass having to tumble towards that centre.
Again, the definition would be the centre, the centre of the Earth, being whatever it may be, is where everything pulls towards.
Yep. And
that's probably why everybody still stood standing up, and it's only because of the motion that the probability is that you're not.
So can I ask you where you think the centre is?
Up at the centre of the sphere, but
So that's what I've just said. A body in motion, the body in motion, because we're not just dealing with one rotational movement, but we're dealing with the multiple different movements.
But again, the speed of the other movements, we don't perceive. We don't perceive that speed because we're travelling too fast for our eyesight to actually.
But we'd already just established that we had to throw that out. We have to throw the idea of any movement out because you can't prove that it's true. You can't even measure it. You can't feel it. You can't test it. If you can't test it, it's not reproducible. It's not verifiable, and so therefore it must be false. I think it's a false axiom, a false premise. If you lead from a false premise, then the conclusion that you come to will also be false. So if we go back on to centrifugal and centripetal forces, just excluding that example about things following a vector line and shifting, literally you can feel that shift. Can I ask you why you don't feel that?
When you're standing still?
At any time. Have you ever felt that at any time other than when you're in a moving vehicle, something which is moving?
No.
You've never felt it?
No.
Again, I would postulate at that point then that it's not true.
That's your opinion, it's not mine. This is all about. It's your opinion against my opinion. So therefore, I believe that the world is round and it spins round about. And therefore, the speed of it.
I'd flip that round about and say it's not about opinion. This is a Socratic method of a hypothesis elimination, whereby we present truth and evidence, and that we are actually challenging people's cognitive dissonance to prove that people believe things which are not true. And that, again, back to the cognitive dissonance, just to talk about this, is that what happens in a person's mind, you might have, it's not cool to reference the Matrix movie, but Morpheus talks to Neo about this, and he basically states that somebody who's been in the system for too long fails to be able to accept reality simply because of cognitive dissonance. They cannot separate themselves away from the imagined reality, even when they're presented with the truth. I'd post it to you.
I'd tell you something, if we're going to start talking about the Matrix, you can stop that now and delete it, because
I was making a point.
Yeah.
Making a sensible point.
Yeah. No, not in the Matrix movie.
Sorry.
It's a shit movie. They're all shit.
So, so that's objective.
It is a movie.
So that's objective.
Therefore, it is no real.
Right. So yep, exactly. So it's no real. But the point still remains. The point still remains true, and it's still applicable to the philosophical. No, it's not.
Well, I don't believe it.
It's a measurable construct, and you can measure someone's cognitive dissonance.
Somebody spoke to Neo in the film. No.
So we've managed to digress. So what we've done here is that normally what happens when you converse with someone, if you present something which is subjective rather than objective, they will latch onto the subjective element and roll with it because it's the only thing that they've got. They can't prove anything that's been spoken about, and so they would automatically reject it.
In general terms, I think you're trying. I mean, I can understand where you're going. I can get whether it's around or whether it's not, and how far distance and what you can actually do. Right? I don't know where you're going to get. I don't know what the end comes and says.
Well, the end come is again, it's a point of agreement, because all things, the basis of truth is always agreement.
Well, to be honest, you're not going to get agreement from me because in general terms, my opinion and my belief says no, it's not right.
Yeah. So I would ask you about intellectual intellectual honesty and
Well, why do
integrity.
you think, when you're standing here and you're taking your camera and whatever me, why do you think it happens?
Sorry, say that again?
Why do you think, Ailsa Craig comes forward and it doesn't come forward? Why do you think that happens?
Why it comes forward and
When you take your camera and pull it forward, you get to see it all. But how do you know you get to see it all?
Well, I can literally see the beach.
No.
I can see the bottom. I can see the shoreline.
You can see the shoreline, but you don't know just exactly, because you're not actually standing in that shoreline at that point in time.
Well, I've observed it from, again, I physically have observed this firsthand from Ardrossan to
Yeah, but that's from Ardrossan, so you're standing in Ardrossan. You actually don't know what's on that beach.
Well, I've got photographic evidence.
You physically, you don't know up close and personal just exactly where the waterline is and how far up the beach it is and whatever may be, without actually going and
this would be regarded as angle of incidence, and I can calculate this and I can verify from my perspective. I've already said I can use trigonometric calculations to make an exact determination of where my point of visual intersection deviates. If you imagine, can I just ask you, does the horizon rise to your eye level?
I don't know, to be honest.
Well, again, I can see that it does, you know.
It depends. I suppose it depends on your point, where you're looking at it from. If you were down in the shoreline,
Yep.
it might not be rising to your horizon.
It absolutely has to. It has to conform to linear perspective. It has to conform to that. It's the reason that it does this is our height from the level of the sea to where we're physically looking at it from, and the angle, that angle between the beach, the level there, and my eyes creates an angle which makes the horizon rise up.
No?
If I can maybe just show you this again, this is linear perspective. Here's a practical example of a gentleman walking over a football field. The football field is 360 feet from one side to the other. The camera has been placed on the ground at the goalpost, and it's watching this guy walking across a level. It's known to be level. He's walking across a level plane. The camera rises up to, the horizon, which is called the apparent horizon, rises to the middle of the lens, which is, again, rising to your eye level. And as the chap walks away, you can see that he disappears because the angle of incidence changes.
Okay.
Do you think he's went over the curvature of the world?
No, he's just got further away.
He's just got further away. And so that's what we're observing when we're looking at the horizon. What we're looking at here is that because of the angle of incidence, we can prove this to be true. Again, you can prove this to be true. Spherical trigonometry is a calculation which anybody can do. When you don't observe the calculation that you're told you should be able to observe, is it therefore true?
Say that again?
Again, the fundamental and basic premise is that if you use spherical trigonometry and you use the basic premise which has been identified as being factually and evidentially true, and you couldn't observe curvature, would you not have to come to the conclusion that curvature didn't exist?
No.
Is you've not been able to, you'd be happy to accept that curvature was real even though you can't measure it?
Yeah.
Even though we've established those points of fact for science?
No, I'm one of the world's believers.
It's interesting, you know, it's something that people should probably think a wee bit more about, you know, that way. I respect your views to think what you like, but again, capturing those reactions from people, the first-hand reactions from people when they're presented with this stuff, that's really what this is all about.
I think you know the whole distance perception, and as I say, I think that the spinning of whatever may be is spinning so quickly that our perception is you can't actually see it. We don't. Our eyes don't move quick enough to actually pick up the.
Yeah, no, that.
You know, and I mean, you just wafting about here, you know, trying to swat away a midgie or whatever maybe proves that you can't move it quick enough because they're still there.
Well, I mean, that's again, that's to be honest with you. Have you heard of logical fallacies? A logical fallacy would be again starting from false premises and then saying that because this is true, something else must therefore be true. Which is post hoc ergo propter hoc is the Latin terminology for this, and it's a logical fallacy to start with an axiom which is false and then to claim that something else must be true because what you've said is true. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of this stuff goes on, but I would suggest that there is there's an element right at the start. Again, so a lot of the questions were based around trust of authority. Do we trust the government? Do we trust these images? How do we feel about this stuff?
I think the images and whatever may be, and the whole scenario, did we land on the moon and all that kind of shit, has always been up with a subjective argument that nobody will ever, you can never ever, can you disprove it? You probably could if you really dug out.
If you follow the scientific methodology, you can prove it because it doesn't conform to the salient points.
You know. But the whole thing, we want to believe that we landed on the moon.
Yeah, we want to believe that,
and we want to believe that NASA tonight, I heard tonight, they're sending something to the sun. Now, why are we spending billions upon billions of dollars doing, telling people we're going to do this when we're no?
So at that point, I couldn't possibly, if I couldn't convince you of all the other things, I could never give you an answer to that and convince you that it was true.
In all probability, we're building something else that's going to do something, some war machine that's going to blow. But by the same token, do we believe that everybody has, missiles that you see, they see them fire them, and yes, they do. You can see them get.
Hi guys. As I'm speaking, I'm hearing my own voice. I think it might be out of sync. I don't know if it's going to be out of sync. If it is, I apologise. If it's not, forget I said anything. So I've just dropped in at the end, just to kind of say that, yep, the guy, he was a fantastic guy, and again, my method was a little bit too full on. I wasn't conversational enough, and I never really gave the guy enough room to breathe. And I'll make sure to be mindful of that in the future. But again, thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll post another one tomorrow or whatever. I've got quite a lot. I'll walk through the editing process and post them as and when. So thanks for watching. Bye bye now.